Okay, let's resume, please. We're actually down to just two bills under the agenda, and these are, so we can easily dispense with this in a few minutes. So this is the SBN 1013 of Senator Joel Villanueva, an act strengthening the procedure for registration of voters during barangay elections, amending for the purpose Republic Act 8189, also known as the Voters Registration Act of 1996. So basically, well, based on his, on the explanatory note, and he would want this to be dubbed as the Barangay Anti-Hakot Bill. This is in relation to the registration for purposes especially of the barangay elections. He wants it to make it clear that the requirement of the 1 year and the 6 months requirement for registration should specifically refer to the barangay, city, or municipality, district, or province, and not just currently it's just the place where they propose to vote, city, municipality. We recognize the cogency of the rationale for this proposal, which the proponent thinks would be one way of deterring vote buying during the barangay elections. Any opposition to this? Comelec?
This is just a personal observation, ma'am, no, in
Okay.
relation to the function of my department, which is registration. Practically
Yes.
it's registration. Again, I would like to reiterate that the commission has not yet come up with the corresponding position on these bills.
Yes, without prejudice to the
Yes.
position of Comelec as an institution. So what is your view?
First and foremost, ma'am, Section 9 specifically provides barangay, city, or municipality, district, or province. This is, I think, merong constitutional issues tayo dito, considering that Article 5, Section 1 on suffrage, hindi nilagay dito yung yung barangay, city, municipality, district, or province. That's one. Second is considering that this concerns registration, it has been the claimor for applicants for registration, itong pag-fill up ng number of copies application for registration. 8189, RA 8189 requires 3 copies. One for the election officer, second copy for the provincial election supervisor, and the third copy, National Central File. Section 24, Section 4 of this bill provides the National Central File. So I think it would be better to incorporate a provision amending the requirements under 8189, which is the 3 copies of the application form. So instead of 3 copies, hard copies, pwede na pong yung copy for the provincial and central file, soft copies na lang po. So it will no longer be taxing on the part of the applicant for registration to fill up 3 copies. Then dito sa change of residence within 180 days. 180 days. I think change of residence, medyo may issue tayo dito, ma'am. We cannot prevent people from changing their residence anytime. I think this refers to the change of registration records.
Yes.
Registration records. And for the record, Republic Act 8189 provides that there will be no transfer of registration records or application for registration or registration for that matter within a period of 120 days. Further, yung registration natin, kasama na yung registration period natin, kasama na rin yung application for transfer of residence.
Any other point?
So, mayroon na tayong existing prohibition on this. Although, sa nakita ko dito sa batas na ito, maganda ito because this will discourage people from enticing applicants or voters to transfer the registration records, especially during barangay elections. And supposedly, yung registration natin for this year's barangay election, hindi na natin sinama ang transfer of registration records considering the proximity, the period or the period of time from election ng national at saka barangay elections na dapat gaganapin last October. So, because of that, yung 6 months residency requirements under the Constitution may not be complied with. No? So, basically, ma'am, we already have under 8189 this period, a prohibited period for registration as well as transfer of registration records.
It's there already. And certainly, it cannot be no transfer of residence.
Yes, ma'am.
Certainly, that cannot be mandated.
And also, ma'am, as far as Section 5 is, Section 4 is concerned, the Commission in Manila shall ensure, etc. Now, it is the office of for the information of the chair, it is the office of the election officer that updates the voting history of each and every registered voter. So after elections, they are mandated to update to determine who are those voters who failed to vote twice. So dito nakalagay 3 months pero nothing has been said kung sinong gagawa. Sinabi lang dito, Commission in Manila. So basically, as far as 8189 and other COMELEC rules and regulations, it's the office of the election officer that performs the updating of the voting history to identify and determine voters who failed to vote twice.
So we would want the COMELEC to include that in the position paper to be submitted.
The election ng Barangay Affairs Department incorporated already in its recommendation
to the NBank.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So if you can please make sure that all those points, if your recommendation is adopted by the NBank, particularly in relation to Section 24 in the proposal, please include that if your recommendation is adopted by the NBank. So going back to the main point of this bill, to already specify in the relevant provision, Section 9 of 8189, barangay, city or municipality, district or province, instead of just this general description of a place. Do you have a problem to that? With that?
Pursuant to the Constitution, ma'am, it's very clear na 6 months in the place where he intends to vote. Ganon lang naman nilagay.
But is there a problem if a law would specify exactly the place? And I think the reason why it's as general as that, the usage of the word place, is to provide ample flexibility if and when it is necessary to so specify. And nakita nga ni Senator Villanueva yung problema with respect to barangay elections, especially that barangay elections are held separately from the synchronized the general elections. Assuming that doesn't fall or that doesn't raise any constitutional problem, do you have any other basis to...
I would prefer, ma'am, that instead of putting city, municipality, or district, barangay would be enough. In the barangay where he resides. Okay na yan, ma'am.
Agree?
Kasi pag nasa barangay ka,
Nasa barangay ka talaga.
Oo. Mas
You cannot
specific
go
yun.
down any further,
Yes.
like sa sitio o sa Purok.
Yes.
Sitio, Purok, street. That would be too much. So that's a good point, actually. Can we consider? Okay, so we will further discuss that at the TWG level. Any other comment on any of this, on any of the aspects of SB number 1013? If none, then let's proceed to the last. Yes, Ms. Jimenez.
Thank you, Madam. I would like to go back to the matter about ease of monitoring and accountability.
Please proceed.
Because even if we are able to agree on these new concepts, no, I think it's not that I do not trust the COMELEC or we do not trust the COMELEC, but although there is already a level of distrust on that aspect, you know, I think the role of civil society should be institutionalized in partnering with COMELEC, especially on electoral matters, starting from registration to preparations before elections and even during elections, most especially poll watching and even after assessing the whole electoral exercise, because without people participation, civil society engagement, I think many problems would really arise. And more practical about this is civil society in the localities are more effective in monitoring. COMELEC officials come and go, but civil society and people who are have been residents in the locality can easily monitor. And I think the matter about participation and institutionalizing this participation of civil society, not necessarily accredited civil society groups, should be more encouraged and seriously considered by COMELEC. And if it has to go through legislative process, I think the matter about institutionalizing the CSO and NGO role in the electoral process together with COMELEC should be made a priority already, because all of the proposals here would require the participation of people, and more so civil society. And even if we agree on many things already and there are new agreements, there are new resolutions, without this, problems will still arise.
Thank you. We note that, and as I mentioned during the break, that anyone here would be welcome to suggest the refiling of any bill or bills which were previously taken up, actually repeatedly taken up and still not acted upon at the Senate level. I know that some of you have been engaging with Congress on many important points for electoral reform, and especially when we tackle the bills relating to the automated electoral system. They are not yet part of today's agenda. That would be set for another date and time. We would certainly welcome your inputs vis-a-vis your assessment again of the last elections, the 2016 elections. Okay, thank you. So the last bill to be taken up today is the Ejército Bill, Bill number 1108, an act identifying other persons criminally liable for election offenses and increasing the penalties for election-related offenses. So amending the relevant provisions of the Omnibus Election Code. So basically, the bill seeks to specifically include as among the persons criminally liable for election offense or offenses members of the Board of Election Inspectors, members of the Board of Canvassers, and or officials of the Commission on Elections who aid, assist, or participate directly or indirectly to the commission of the electoral offenses. Of course, we know that in Section 263 itself, or in the Omnibus Election Code itself, 264, and in the enumeration of the various electoral or election offenses, there are provisions there specifically pertaining already to BEIs, to BOCs. Diba? Ito parang mas catch-all. So it entails actually a review of the specific offenses already enumerated in the Omnibus Election Code and other special laws which also provide for other types of election offenses na pwede na isama yung members of the BEI, the BOC, and officials of the Commission on Elections. That's how I see this. Dahil nga meron ng mga particular portions on BEIs and BOCs. But on the other election offenses, which of these provisions, which of these election offenses would possibly involve the culpability of BEIs, BOCs, and Commission and COMELEC officials. But the idea itself, I think, is acceptable, that if and when these election officials are found to be complicit in the commission of any election offense as may be applicable to them, they should be held also liable. And the other aspect of the proposal of the bill is to increase the penalties for election-related offenses. As a matter of principle, I think I would be expecting no opposition to this increase of penalties for election offenses. Yes, Mr. Lagman.
The law says that the minimum penalty is 6 years imprisonment for the violation of election laws. I just want to ask the COMELEC, since we know that violations have been committed from time immemorial, I'd like to just ask COMELEC, how many have been put behind bars
Good
since
question.
the law? Because it may not be the increase in the penalty, but rather enforcement of the existing law.
The most number of cases, sir, that are filed involves violation of carrying of firearms and other deadly weapons. These are usually filed before the prosecutor's office for investigation. So I think we have also, we have a number of convictions, but I do not have the exact figure at this time, sir.
Can you submit to us the data?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
aside from violations of the gun ban, the COMELEC gun ban, what are the other
Yes, ma'am, I will.
election offense cases which have actually prospered? I think there are quite a few.
Yes, ma'am. But usually,
So again, we go back to the you
but
know, the
usually
enforcement.
Yes, ma'am. But usually, those that were convicted were usually meted the penalty of straight penalty of 1 year, ma'am. That's the usual
And, no,
penalty
the
imposed by
current
the
law is not less than 1
courts.
year, but not more than 6 years only. That's why this bill seeks to increase it to 6 years and 1 day, but not more than 12 years. Yes.
We fully support the increase in penalties because it has an enforcement aspect. Because when the under this bill, when it increased the penalty, no, the prospective witnesses can now apply under the witness protection program. Kasi under the witness protection program, the witnesses can only apply when the penalty is a grave felony, which is a penalty of 6 years and 1 day at least, no. So under the existing penalty system of the Omnibus Election Code, any prospective witness cannot apply under the WPP. So we fully support this bill because now witnesses can apply under the WPP.
That is correct. So it can entice further prosecution. Any yes, Attorney Vitangcol.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Based on our previous election experiences, we observed that the imposition of penalties, especially the increase in penalties, will not deter electoral fraud. And as an electoral reform advocate since 2010, we believe that electoral fraud can be minimized by implementing stringent technical measures both in the operation of the election itself and on the operation of the automated election system. And being involved in automated election system, we have been espousing reforms in the way it should be implemented, particularly amendment in the AES law.
Yes.
So we are looking forward to those kind of electoral reforms, Madam Chair. And
Yes, as I mentioned, the further hearings of this committee would tackle several other or many other bills, particularly in relation to AES reform.
yes, sure. Yes, Your Honor. And in fact, you mentioned a while ago about the our assessment on the previous elections.
Yes.
I have written a 4-series article in the Manila Times, and it's my own personal assessment of the previous national elections from 2010 up to 2016. And I would be glad to provide this committee a copy
Please.
of that report.
When we do tackle already the pending bills on the AES, we would also be requiring you would be the same. You are the stakeholders in the electoral process. We would be requiring you to also submit your assessment on the last elections. Thank you. Please submit. The committee secretary can have that. So I guess that's about it for today. We basically tackle only minor bills, relatively minor bill or bills, except yes, Ms. Caritos.
Ma'am, I think, ma'am, there's really a need to revisit the Omnibus Election Code because there's a blanket penalty for hundreds of election offenses. For example, you have the same penalty for unlawful electioneering and vote buying. So there's a need to revisit the penalty for those offenses because probably for unlawful electioneering they can just be a fine imposed and not just imprisonment. So this would help in the better prosecution of election offenses or offenses against
That is also
law.
the direction of the
Yes.
committee.
Okay, thank
If
you.
you can come up with something like, because well, I actually refiled the new criminal code, and then probably we can consider an overhaul of the omnibus election code, but that would take time, but we can start the process already.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, just
Ms.
last,
Jimenez.
I would have to rephrase what I said a while ago. So, just like to go back to ease of monitoring and accountability, and yes, and where civil society can effectively come in with COMELEC. Because I am asking this, because many of the violations have been addressed by COMELEC, but there is no clear actions on matters of implementation or enforcement. I would like to know if there are pending bills also with regards accountability of COMELEC, not necessarily of candidates or political parties, but of COMELEC itself as the prime election agency. And if this
I
is-
don't remember any such bill.
yeah,
At
I
least in
don't
so far
remember
as
also.
our menu, our inventory of bills is concerned.
Yes, because I am asking
We'll check
this.
that out.
Yes,
Mhm.
let's. I would ask the committee to maybe check out the bills that have been filed before. I remember one that has made and is asking for the accountability of COMELEC itself, although it is a separate independent body.
Mhm.
But I would like to know if this can be also tackled in your committee.
Oh, yes, for as long as the appropriate bill
Yes.
is filed and referred to the committee, then the committee will.
Okay, and secondly, that that civil society be part of institutionalized reforms in the committee, so
Mhm.
that COMELEC will not be only acting on its own, but with civil society providing effective support.
That's
to
why
it.
the committee is called Committee on Electoral Participation, on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation, to highlight the significance of involvement of a civil society and people in general, because everyone has a stake in every elections. So we will check out the list of the bills already referred to the committee and see if there has been or there has been a bill or bills on that. If not, we will look for that and we will draft. If none, if there are no bills previously filed, then we will consider drafting new bills. Before we finally adjourn, 2-minute suspension. Okay, so a TWG meeting will be scheduled, and we will again invite you or your respective organizations to participate in that technical working group. Dun talaga hinihimay lahat ito, so that we would be able to see all the nuances and all the whatever defects are there in the bills. So that's a more important aspect actually of the work of a committee at the TWG level. So I urge the participation again of everyone, and also in the other hearings to be held on the other bills. But after today, there would be a TWG meeting. We will issue appropriate notice. Again, thank you everyone. Marami pa po tayong pag-uusapan sa committee ito. Inuna lang muna namin yung medyo hindi gaano yung iba mga controversial na, highly contentious na